Hey, this is Tiqqle, and in this video we're going to talk about Castle Nathria and the experience through the first week of raiding for me on Enhance, and I also played some Ally through the raid. We're going to talk about what's competitive, what's the situation with gearing, and why you have to be a little bit careful of judging people or yourself regards to gear, and then we're also going to talk about what's my recommendation for Ally and Enhance and what's competitive. And before we jump into it, I want to thank the sponsor of this video, Dragon Champions. Dragon Champions is a free mobile RPG game having the style of those old school computer games that you used to play. There are over 60 characters to choose from 7 playable races, allowing you to mix and match your party and go into battle. My favorite is Corcoran. He's a shaman. There's a lot of shaman references and a lot of quirky, humorous stuff that's thrown in there about shaman and about the different champions themselves. There's a lot of different types of battles having to do with PvE, campaign quests, as well as PvP arena battles. There's other events that are going on all the time that you can jump into to get extra rewards. If you do complete the campaign, there's a horde mode basically where there's waves and waves of mobs that allow you to see how tough your group really is. And as you continue to gear yourself up, you can push through that or through the PvP or PvE additional stuff at the end game. I actually really like the art style as being something simple. The animations of the battles are pretty good, and I would say that my favorite part is the fact that you can upgrade and craft new gear basically in a very simple way. It's not like there's a ton of currencies. It's very simple on how you just boost your character's levels and you boost your character's gear through doing PvE or PvP events. And if you check the link down in the description, you'll go ahead and get 250,000 gold, 500 Drecoins, 500 energy, and the new hero, which I like, is Corcoran the Shaman. And if you're interested in that mobile game or checking this game out, check out the description below. Thank you again to Dragon Champions. Now let's go ahead and jump into the video. So starting off, I basically played the most of the raid as Enhanced. During some attempts, I was switching to Ellie to see what it's like to be ranged, as well as see how my damage would be different. Now, I'm a Venthyr Shaman. I went Venthyr because I'm going to play all the specs of Shaman in PvP and PvE. So because of this, I decided, hey, you know what? I think this is going to be the best one. I know I'm going to be mainly raiding as Enhanced in the Mythic raid, but I knew that I love Ellie. So I wanted to test it out in a few attempts. You can see via my Warcraft logs, I got most of the kills on Enhanced. From my experience, when I was melee or I was ranged, my experience in the raid encounter wasn't that much different. The only difference really was in Enhanced needs melee uptime. So to do that, I almost think I really should have been Feral Lunge to increase my uptime. Would have helped my damage overall. Didn't take it because I'm dumb. That's one thing that would really shorten the difference between melee and range. Having that charge will really help you on boss fights for uptime. The only difference is, like, anytime we're running back to the boss for melee, range is already starting to cast, right? That was the only difference for being a melee. Melee actually had a lot of advantages on certain fights where they didn't have to deal with mechanics as exaggeratedly, if that makes sense, or if that's even a word. Certain range had to do many other mechanics. Specifically during Lady Enerva, that was a fight where the range had to do like all of the mechanics. Melee was basically just like, so I was just basically on the boss most of the time unless there was a vial nearby to grab. I'm not going over the boss mechanics now. If you want me to do a too long didn't read version of those, I'd be happy to do that. But really, that was the only boss fight, I think, that really had a drastic difference between melee and ranged. Otherwise, ranged had to deal with other mechanics. Ranged had to focus on adds during the dance fight a little bit more than melee, because melee needs to focus on DPSing the boss. Because we're under geared, we have to prioritize who's going to be able to do the most damage to what. And obviously, range can switch to adds a lot easier if we have to push the boss through to the next phase. So really, my experience for melee or range was really not, I mean, it was honestly not that not that different. Even onto the first boss of Heroic, it really wasn't very different. I don't think there's an advantage or disadvantage that drastically. I do think that there are certain classes that have certain things like immunities, which are always an advantage when talking about raid mechanics or soaking things by yourself or that. But overall, like, I didn't feel like I was at a disadvantage being melee in this fight. I actually think the mythic pluses are more punishing than the raid is in terms of melee. So I thought that was fine. And then the other thing to remember, and I kind of started to talk about it with the covenants and alignment, is the gear. Right now, people are just leveling to 60. They're trying to figure out any way they can get gear. It's all gated by Blizzard. You have to remember that everyone's going to be somewhere between 170 and 190. Well, now 200 now. As time goes on, with Mythic Plus season being out, people are all item levels are gonna get a trend towards 210 very quickly. Now, honestly, during this raid time and during, like, when I was going in there with people in my guild, people had a variety of gear on. I had mostly 184s. Some people had mostly 171s with some 184s. Some people didn't even have a chance. Like, That's what we have to remember is we're so early on to make huge judgments, and I was a little surprised to see that Blizzard made some tuning changes recently, but I'm a little surprised by that because people are so varying in gear setup, so that if you look at like everyone doing this raid, like most people are like half geared, right? Or half even geared with stats they want. Half of my gear isn't even the stats that I want. So that's all kind of filtering into the logs and everything. So be a little bit careful about that, especially when looking at like, oh, this marksman hunter did so much more damage. Well, is he geared? If he's not geared and he's doing that much damage, like, okay, that's good to know. Or if he's super geared and that's why he's doing that much damage. You have to be aware of those types of things when comparing yourself. Because I know right now people are in that weird early phase. Like I'm an Enhanced Shaman, I'm an LA Shaman, I'm a DH, I'm a DK. And here's when I'm sitting on the meters. But here's this person above me. Should I be switching classes? Should I be worried about my raid slot? And really, I think you got to take a lot of these things into consideration and realize that not everyone is fully where they really want to be. People aren't even at 80% of where they are going to be in the next month. So keep that in mind. Now, with that being said, let's talk about LE versus Enhance a little bit more. Number one, there was an LE Shaman in my raid. People were saying that LE's not going to do well. They don't bring any raid utility. There was an LE Shaman in my raid that did he was number one every single fight. You know what? He wasn't even uber geared. He just had some trinkets and like that was it. Otherwise, I was actually trying to go the same spec as him. I was looking at the we were looking at details in the middle of the raid encounter, and I was doing the same button presses, but he was doing a lot more damage. And I think that's where the Covenant differences are going to come in. He was Necrolord. He got like 20% uptime on the plus int buff, right? And so I was like, maybe that's why he's doing so much more, or maybe it's his trinkets, maybe it's whatever. But I was literally pressing the same buttons, but I was doing significantly less damage, and it was on that Lady Nerva fight, etc. We were like, what is going on here? But Ellie in general, I've been hearing that they've been crushing it. So that's really great for them. And if you're looking at your class, comparing it to others, what I think you need to be focusing on is, am I geared? What's the gear difference? What's the Covenant difference? Which is actually going to be a big thing, of course. And then look at like rotation, build all those little things that you can do it. Like I was talking to him about his stats versus my stats and all this stuff, and it was generally very similar. So the only big difference was the Covenant, which is a very sad thing to hear, especially from a like specker like me. I want to play Enhance, but I also want to play Ellie. I want to play in both, but right now the Covenants are not even close. I mean, they're totally different. There's not even that much of an overlap, frankly. I think it's like best and worst on both sides. So it's a little upsetting, but in general, Ellie is very competitive. It was smashing meters. If you look on Warcraft logs, and I'm going to show you how to look at the different builds and the different kind of performance of Ellie and Enhance. I'm going to show you how to do it right now so you can see yourself and to see which is better for each fight. So that we're going to go ahead and switch over and do that right now. Let's look at Warcraft logs and let me show you how it went and how you can figure out what the different builds are that you need to focus on. Enhance for me, I was doing pretty well in terms of parses, so that's good. But how you want to do this is you want to go over to the left side. You want to go ahead and use this drop down and click on, let's see, Shriekmaw, for example. Let's go into rankings and see what the best build was. And see, like you can see number one, like, okay, how are people parsing in general? Oh, there's an Ellie, 39th period. For heroic Shriekmaw is an Ellie. That is awesome for Shaman. Like, we're all about... there's Word Up, the Savage himself, 74th. Another great indicator that Enhance and Ellie are competitive. What I encourage you to do is do not look at those bar graphs that show the span of DPS. You only need to look at the top DPS that a class can put out. If Word Up can do it, believe it or not, you can do it too. Okay, so you do not need to look at the bottom half of that. You don't need to look at the average Enhanced Shaman, the average Ellie. Maybe our spec is something is very, the variance of skill or ability is very spread out. Who knows? But for DKs, you can see clearly there's a lot of DKs. You just want to look at it and see what's up here. Boomkins, cool, but a ton of DKs, right? So now let's go ahead and say, okay, let's go ahead and go a little bit deeper. I'm going to go on Shaman. You can do this for any spec that you play. We can go ahead and look. Okay, look. Looks like mostly LE Shamans are doing quite well on this fight. And now what I can do is go one step further to say, okay, well, what build are they doing? Gucci here, if I go ahead and look over here at his logs for Heroic Shriekmaw, was playing Ellie Blast, Ice Fury, Stormkeeper, okay, and he had these two trinkets on. Unbound Changeling, abilities have a chance to increase your haste, and he had the Dark Moon card. I would recommend everybody, if you do not have good trinkets, Dark Moon cards are not that expensive. I bought it for Enhance. I probably should buy it for Ellie as well, but that's that. And then you can also see what Soulbind he was. Because he was these things, he is the exact one I was talking about. He is the second tier of Ellie. It's the build that I had recommended as well, and he went Elemental Equilibrium. Okay, interesting, right? So, and then if you want to go even deeper, you can go into this and see what his rotation was and stuff like that through casts, timelines. This is how you can really break it down. If you guys want me to do a different video about how to analyze, you know, the sims, or sorry, the logs, let me know. I'm happy to try to do that to the best of my ability. But this is probably the number one thing I would say is if you really want to see what they're casting, even in the opener, you can see casts. Okay, he's Ellie blasting, he's flame shocking. Oh, you can't see it. He's Ellie blasting, he's flame shocking, he's potioning, you know, he's using flame elemental, right? All that stuff, right? So that's another way to look at it. So let's go back though. So this is a way to see, okay, well, which one's doing better on the fights? Well, they're both doing pretty well. Ellie's all over the place, though. Word Up, you can see what he was using. He was using Forceful Winds. He was using Ascendance. Okay, he was using Nature's Guardian as well. He was using these two trinkets. He is a Venthyr. He was using Doom Winds. So there you go. There you have it. That's what he was using in that fight. That's good to know, isn't it? So let's go ahead and go to the next fight. And then this is basically what you can do over and over. Again, an Enhance, top DPS, period, for shamans. Now, if I were to look at all classes, again, you could see, okay, well, are there shamans up here? Okay, look, S-Priests are everywhere. You can tell there's double dotters everywhere here. So you can see that class is particularly strong. But let's go to an AoE fight. Sunboy here, we can go ahead and see that a lot of, now we can see a lot of enhanced shamans are popping up. This is probably because it's such a cleave-heavy fight. A lot of people are going to be looking at Doom Winds, Doom Winds, Doom Winds, Doom Winds, Doom Winds, all over the place. We got to see also Echoes of the Great Sundering, which is there for the Ellie Shamans for their cleave, because this is such an ad-heavy fight. That's all I'm going to say about that. I want you to look at this yourself to see what build people are going for single target versus AoE. I want you to look at the play style. You can go ahead and look in the cast. If you want me to do another video, let me know. Put it down in the comments below. But that's my take. I actually loved the raid. It was so much fun. I ended up raiding 3 nights. Oh shoot, I'm going to be raiding again 4 nights tonight. So, I mean, it's just nonstop, but it's a really good time. So let me know what you think down in the comments below. A lot of people have asked me this question about Ellie versus Enhance, so I did want to make this video, especially after the first week of raid. So with that being said, guys, we'll see you in the next video or on stream every day, twitch.tv/TiqqleThis. Thank you so much for the love and support. We'll see you on stream or in the next one. Love you guys. Take care.